Welcome to the Best Living Show. I'm your host, Dr. Rachelle Sweet. Breathe, eat, sleep, thrive in every aspect of your life. What does thriving actually mean? Thriving is not a word, it's an action, a way of living. And that's what the Best Living Show is all about. So get ready, step into a new narrative, and find a new way of being. There's a beautiful connection, a spark that flies at the intersection between the genetic code and your internal guidance system. We're going to throw away the culture that will tell us that thriving is something only for a few. Every one of us is unique. It's our time to discover why. The Best Living Show starts now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Best Living Show. We have an awesome show tonight. I have two wonderful people with me this is going to be energetic, uplifting, upbeat. With me is Peggy Willms and Markus Wettstein, and they are the co-authors of these two wonderful books. One is the first one was The Fourfold Formula of All Things Wellness. And the second one is Win the War on Wellness, or Win the Wellness War, I should say, for we are responsible, the acronym there for war. And I actually have the great pleasure of being a co-author in these books too. I have a piece in both of them, which I was so honored to have. In fact, having the first book was kind of my introduction into writing, and it spurred on my own book. Yeah, it spurred on my own book and, some other writing pieces that I've done. So for me, this is a great honor to have the both of you here. And so for the listeners, if you don't know who these two wonderful people are, Peggy has been a certified personal trainer and sports performance nutritionist, personal and executive health, wellness, and life coach. My goodness. For over 30 years. She's an entrepreneur, as I said, an author. She is the host of her own show as well. She also is an executive producer of Coach Peggy Real Time, which is a docuseries for transformation. She hosts wellness retreats. What is it that this lady doesn't do?
Right.
She is a contributor to an international online magazine. She spent over 20 years in corporate wellness, managed multi-million-dollar medical clinics, and she's done worked site wellness programs, earned multiple awards. And when she's not doing all of that, she has two sons and two grandsons and lives at the beach in the sunshine in Florida with her better half. Welcome to the show, Peggy.
Thank you. Yeah, she lives with the hurricanes. That's me. Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah. And then, of course, Dr. Wettstein has practiced endocrinology for 30 years. He is a diabetes, metabolic, and stress management specialist. So, he's busy. He also works in energy medicine as a licensed bio-well practitioner, which I want to know more about that. I didn't know about that. And I'm like, ooh,
Sure.
I want to know more about that. And he assists clients in improving their health and wellness by measuring their energy field, stress level, health status, energy reserve via electrophotonic imaging. I mean, wow, that sounds awesome. And he lives in Colorado with his wife, has 3 children, and enjoys skiing and hiking. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for having us. And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the credentials on both of you, amazing. And then on top of that, you decided, okay, we're going to get together. We're going to bring a whole lot of other people with you and go on this kind of health crusade.
Yes.
How did this start? Tell me how this started.
Peggy, you go.
He's going to put me in charge just like he did 14 years ago when I ran his medical clinic. See, Peggy, you go. It's going to look pretty.
I'm
actually,
just going to look pretty and do whatever I do, you know. She was doing the rest.
that's right. So we actually met in 2009 here in Grand Junction, Colorado. And so Marcus came to town as the newest endocrinologist in town. And I opened up his clinic. And it's that kind of energy, Dr. Rachel, that you know about when you just click with someone.
Yeah.
And he's honestly friends like my brother, the one that tells me that I'm not walking the talk with my own wellness. But that's kind of how we came together.
As
And
anybody.
you know, like we've said many times, is that we wanted to bring something together in a book form to get our all things wellness concept out there. And we initially thought we'd do testimonies for his patients and do some testimonies with my coaching clients. And then we just had a meeting a couple of years ago after COVID. And we said, we can't really narrow this down. Let's open it up to the world internationally and have these stories come in, and we fit them into our wellness wheel. And the book's just honestly evolved, and we've had, what, 60 or 70 authors and media partners. It's how I met you.
It is, yes. Actually, that's the amazing thing. You've actually reached out and met so many people through this book. And as you said, international too. You've got writers from across the globe, and you know, truly amazing that what you accomplished with the first book, and then a second one too.
A third one coming up, because it's a trilogy, and
Yep.
we're excited about that, of course. But yeah, Marcus, did I leave anything out? You know, I always do.
Well, you know, for
Thoughts?
me, the overarching idea when Peggy approached me about writing the trilogy was the wellness wheel, because this is the first idea of a comprehensive self-assessment tool, really, that gives the individual a chance to probe into their own personality, into their own everything. It's mind, body, heart, and the new sector spirit that we haven't left out, which has been really a novel idea, I think. And to give people, especially, you know, I see changes in healthcare, and I feel that people have to be more responsible for their own health, and to give them a tool that is highly individualized so that it actually works for the person applying it. That was the hooker for me. That's when I said, okay, this is really something to dive deep into. And as I approached that from my personal perspective, all of a sudden changes happened in a positive way. And I said, wow, this really works, you know? So not only am I going at that from the scientific perspective, but also from the personal perspective. And it made a big difference to me.
And I think, you know, what you said is so important. It is a wheel, right, of health. And it's, you know, not just one thing. A lot of people will focus like on exercise. And while that's great for the body and it's great for the mind, perhaps it doesn't do everything for the spirit, right? And then, you know, we could say, okay, we're going to go on a diet. Again, you know, that might fuel our body. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't help our mind if we're getting too obsessed about it, or, you know, getting crazy with it. So that it is a holistic view, as you say, with this wellness wheel, and looking at, you know, all components of that, and within that, even smaller components, right?
Yeah.
And if any part of that is not balanced or not worked on, right, what happens? You got a flat tire and you're just kind of going along.
Look at you go, girl.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to hop in the content, not just write a personal story. You're hired. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I
so,
just wanted to give for instance an example. Me and exercise has always been a big problem, and my excuse, for instance, to go to the gym is that's, you know, 2 hours out of my day, and I don't have that time. All these type of things, if you start exploring those and realizing, you know, the excuse that, yeah, but then there's household chores piling up while I'm sitting at the gym pumping iron and things like that. That's all incorporated into this wheel. And you have to make the decision on, do you want to put more energy into this sector or that sector? Why not find out which ones you rate yourself low in the first place? Right. And 24 options of doing that, you know, those 4 sectors are 24 subsectors. That asks a lot of important questions, and might actually wind up you making the decision, okay, I'm not going to do the gym right now. I have much more trouble in my home environment with my wife. Let's concentrate
Right.
on that, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always the thing, right? When we start to look at our lives, sometimes I talked a little bit about this in one of my stories. We can focus on one thing to the detriment of another.
That's
Where
right.
we're so focused perhaps on eating right and going to the gym, and maybe we spend hours doing that and food prepping and everything, but we're not spending time with our family, our children, whatever it
That's
is, or so engrossed with work that, we're just feeling depleted. And so our spirit is dying. I mean, there's so many variants to that. As you said, within your wheel, there's like so many components, the 24 different components. Any of that could be out of balance at any time. And really, it's about asking those questions and being honest with yourself, because let's face it, you're not fooling anybody except yourself.
But here's the truth. Even if you're not honest with yourself on the first go around, the repetitive mentioning of, or even thinking about that topic, at some point in time, you might actually be prepared to tackle that. In the beginning, you probably leave some of these, oh no, I'm much better than I really am in this sector, because it's not time to touch that. You've got 24 others maybe to have to concentrate on first before you can go back to this one. So
Absolutely.
it is really a very individualized, highly flexible tool that anybody could be using on a regular basis to monitor themselves. And that makes the life of a physician much easier also, because now you're talking, when you come into me with a serious health problem that you cannot tackle yourself, you already have in your mind an idea that very easily clicks for me and says, okay, that's the problem. We got to do something. If somebody comes here, oh, I just don't have energy. Well, that's a difficult topic to tackle. And you know that a diagnosis in that situation is not apparent right then and there.
Right. I think that's what really, because I started working on this in 2016, but all the years kind of building up to it. And I was just finding so much that you could go to a gym, you could go to a boot camp and even have a coach or a physician. But until you brought it all together, like, what are your emotional coping skills? What's your creativity? What's your harmony? How's your sleep? Have you gone to see the physician in 3 years? Are you taking your meds? And an organization, it just started to just branch out. And I couldn't find a wheel for my clients that was as all inclusive. And it didn't happen overnight. I kept the sticky notes. It's kind of fun to go back. I was like, oh, that's where I started. Whoo, that was pretty ugly. But like Marcus said, especially from a physician's perspective, you have that baseline done and they're like, I'm tired. And in the world today, Western medicine is going to say, well, maybe your thyroids are kind of a little off. Let's adjust this here and there. But they don't think to say, oh, you're arguing with your husband or you haven't folded the clothes forever. So we often find that when they take that initial assessment, not only should you take it maybe even every month on the first or every 3 months, but certainly when an event happens. I know in the book, we put our own personal examples in a lot more detail, that all books are about the wellness wheel and the stories that you guys share. But in this one, we chose to show our own wheels. And ironically, we've both been using it for several years, that my post-Hurricane Ian wheel was actually better than my wheel from last summer, because I kind of realized subconsciously, consciously, that I was going through an event. And so I knew to dumb this down, work on this. And so personally, that's the most recent example I have of it.
I also find that the more you utilize the wheel, like everything else, so that easier it is for you. In the beginning stages, I must say, to think about 24 topics is hard work. But after a while, you can say, hey, this is really pretty much tucked away. I don't have to concentrate on that topic anymore. And you'll home in on the stuff. And I think in a way you've done that with Hurricane Ian, you've got yourself prepared, you got the wheel in order, sort of thing. The hit comes and you never know how bad it is. It was pretty darn bad.
Right.
But at least you were in a state where you could say, I'm balanced right now. Yeah, this is a big hit. There's a flat right here. But what am I going to do? Right. At this point in time, I'm ready to put some energy from other sectors into this, get myself over the, the loss. I mean, it's
Yeah.
loss. It's
Well,
a,
and the self-assessment thing, it really gets real. If you print it off and you're looking at it or discussing it with someone, and it's a scale of 0 to 10. So if you're doing really well, you're outside on that tread of the wellness wheel and it's rolling along and you're getting towards goal. But towards the hub, the center, if you're at a 1 and it's a big puncture, it's no different than driving out in the driveway. You go over a nail. What am I going to do? So
Right.
anything below 5, we really say that's kind of urgent and can, sneak up on you. But it really makes you get real. Like, am I really doing good? 7 out of 10 sleeping? Not really. So yeah, so that's how the book kind of came about, is we wanted to do something a little different, like you did with your recent book. We wanted to also have content that was helpful, not just a compilation book of a bunch of brilliant stories, but we really wanted to bring in the content into this trilogy.
Yeah. I had one thought and now it slipped. I'm sorry. Okay, next one. It's
That's
the gray
okay.
hair. No, they lose the gone hair.
It'll come
Yeah.
back. It'll come back.
So, I mean, why did you choose to put it in the story format? Like, what was the catalyst for saying, well, okay, we're not going to do, just as you said, kind of testimonials or patients or, anything kind of along those lines, which maybe a traditional book might do. This kind of took it to a different concept.
For me, I think we both maybe have a little bit different twist on the answers, but after 33 years or whatever of coaching and helping people personally, small groups, and I worked with a television show on boot camps, I started to realize that the world needed to tell stories to connect. We're so sick and tired of to-dos and do this diet and it will do this or do this. It's more than kale and squats is what I say, to be healthy. And so after COVID, I really started to connect with, what are the catastrophic stories out there, the suicides, the mental health, the divorces, the, bankruptcies and foreclosures. But not only that, what are the stories? Like, we had one gal for this book say, I'm too vanilla to be in that book. Like, I don't have a catastrophe. I didn't come through a major illness. And I said, then tell us about being vanilla. That's really cool coping skills. Like, let's go.
Right.
And so the storytelling, so I closed my practice last year and focusing the rest of my eternity on sharing stories and helping people connect.
And so after you released the first book, what was the feedback, from people? I mean, I've seen, obviously you share on social media some of it, but what have you heard as people have been reading this and digging into these stories?
So
Did you want to go?
Several examples. So I have some, when people decided they wanted to write in this book, like anybody with a compilation, they're like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. And then as they start to write, they're like, yeah, no. And my sister was a great example of that. She called me and said, I've buried this for a really long time. I just can't do this. And she's been a recovering, meth addict for 21 years. So here, what happened with that is some school friends reached out, some previous coworkers who were like, 20 years ago, I was a part of your life, had kind of no idea. We actually I had a suicide person reach out with mental health that had read the story on LinkedIn and seen a bit of it, got the book. And I'm telling you, Rachel, it's saving and changing lives right now. It's such an honor.
That's awesome.
And the stories are, for me, really a way to get the reader to understand that a big overarching topic here is judgment of other people. The more stories you read of other people, you realize that, whenever somebody stands directly in front of you, you have no clue about their background, and you should not make these judgments that we frequently do. It's part of our process, but we can sort of go against that a little bit and try not to do that and have a better unity that way. This whole thing is about networking, getting together, getting people to understand that judgments don't really help a lot. in many instances. They are life-saving in others. You can't say we shouldn't, if it's a busy street, you make the judgment call not to cross it, right? That type of stuff is good.
Yeah.
But a lot of people take it over the edge and create strife and negativity and negative emotions that are not helpful. We want to network and get people to get together who have the same thought process, which is that we all belong together and we all need to help each other. And only unity is going to save us on this planet if we keep on doing what we have been doing and what we're engaged in right now. It's not going to last much longer.
Right.
We can't ruin the planet like that. We need to get together and come up with solutions.
Yeah.
That's
No, I totally agree. So, telling a story, it's what we've done around the fireside for years, right? We've just replaced it with Netflix. So I think you're kind of getting back to something that we've done for thousands of years. So we will get back to talking about stories and how those inform our lives, because we're going to take a little bit of a break right now. And thank you for listening, everybody. Stay tuned because we still got a lot more show, and we'll be right back after a couple of minutes. Hello and welcome to the Best Living Show. We return, and I have the great fortune of talking with Coach Peggy Willms and Dr. Markus Wettstein, the co-authors of The Fourfold Formula for All Things Wellness and Win the Wellness War. We have having a spirited discussion about storytelling and what that means to tell a story and how that can really make an impact in people's lives. And as we talked about, bring people together, not only all of the authors in the book, right, for a common cause, but also the people that as they read the book, how they are coming together with other people and relating. Because basically a short, when you tell your story, and I know because I'm in the books too, I can relate a little bit to what you're saying about your sister earlier. Like as I wrote that first story, I was like, oh, do I really want to put this out to the world? But then, there's some catharsis in that. There's some release in kind of voicing that story and letting that go out into the world. And there's that relief. And then other people read it and realize they're not alone, that perhaps they've been going through some of the same things. And they realize, wow, okay, this person had this kind of journey. Maybe I can overcome it. Let me take a look at my wellness wheel and figure out how I can, get to the outer tread and start rolling. But yeah, I love this idea so much that in my own book, I also did contributing authors. But tell us a little bit about the framework, because it's a little unique. And you wanted it to be, as you said, to be a learning tool. So kind of what was your approach with putting it together? Because it's not just a whole collection of stories. There's actually a framework to it that goes with this wellness wheel.
So when I looked at the 4 quadrants and I really tried to think about these books, because honestly, I was approached to write a coaching book and to put all that stuff together. And I think I was just tired, tired of saying, this is what I do and I can help you. And in corporate America, sometimes it's hard to get that support when you feel really passionate about something and not everybody's on board quite yet. So when I put this wheel together and I looked at the 4 quadrants, and I've been using the wheel for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years before this. And I started to realize how the spokes fell into each other. So I'm like, okay, we need to put 6 spokes in each of these quadrants that are really very specific to that lane. So whether it's medical, like we were saying before, nutrition, nutrition and diet are 2 different things. Diet's the plan. Nutrition is like, what the heck's going on? What are the macros? And so a lot of this stuff was separate. Once we did the spokes, and especially once we got into this book, we really decided we need to educate with specific prompts, because what we were finding is people were like, okay, what is coping skills? Like, what does that mean?
Okay.
And then like, how do I rate it when so we put some doctor prompts and coach prompts in here so people could fill out the wheel more accurately. And the third book that's coming out that's called Wellness GPS, which is Get Prepared for Success, is really like your car. You know, you're going to dial it in. Where are you headed? What are the speed bumps? What are the detours? But it's going to bring the whole book together. And we're going to talk about love languages and chronotypes and right and left brain and learning styles. Because I really believe if we went back to our kiddos and said, are you auditory or are you visual? It'd be a different world. So we want to tie that in together and bring the trilogy. So it's kind of a stepping stone. So the framework is really like that in this book, Rachel, is, you know, what are each of those spokes and how do you fill out the wheel? And we do have a free wheel on our my website at allthingswellness.com /store. There is a free download of the wheel, and then there is also available an improvement plan, so you can start to play with what this looks like.
Okay, great. And then where can people find the books? Let them know where they can find the books.
You can find it on Amazon, and then we were also pushed through, distributed through Ingram. So the lovely thing about that is you can find it in big box stores and some mom and pop stores. They can all order it, and obviously we can start using it in the medical community, which is Dr. Markus and I are going to start putting together a pilot and see what happens to the medical markers that he looks at. What is A1C? What is sleep? What is that type of stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Now, obviously, you've contributed stories to this book, very personal stories too. So, I mean, obviously, as professionals, you're used to sitting on the other side of the desk, right? Listening to everybody else say, here's my problems. Like, I don't know, what do I do? Now you're kind of saying, whoa, here, I have them too. It's a little bit different as professionals. We don't usually do that. So what was that like for you guys?
Well, honestly, in the beginning, very scary. Opening up like that is a very hard step to take, especially from my background. I was born and raised in Germany, so everything is very strict and not a whole lot of attention during my upbringing to the spiritual aspect of things, and those type of topics were left for the religious, that type of stuff. And so along with all of this came the absence of that, which, if you live your life without spirituality, I was under constant stress from anxieties, from all kinds of things, not being able to understand the whole workings of things have really messed up the majority of my life, I would say. There's nothing wrong with this. I did quite well, and I was, living the American dream and all those kind of things, but something was missing all along. And the anxieties robbed me of a lot of energy. And then I stumbled into, first of all, the whole idea of epigenetics, which is in complete contrast to what we grew up with. It was genetic determinism was it. And the set that you were born with is your program, and you cannot stop that. That creates a lot of anxieties, honestly, because you're saying, hey, what am I living for if it's all pre-programmed? I just sit back and relax and let it happen. That type of stuff does not create an easy life. Quite the opposite. You're anxious all the time because you don't know what's going to hit you next.
Right.
And you don't have a goal, and you're a drifter, and it's just not the way to go. And it causes these anxieties that were so bad that on my first interview with Peggy, when she graciously invited me, almost had to be scripted. And I was sweating and everything else. I mean, it's out there. So you can look at this and say, oh man, the poor guy, I feel for this man. But the process of writing down all this stuff and realizing where it's coming from and working with it, the mental aspect especially, have given me a lot less anxieties. And through that, a lot more energy to play with. And play is what I'm doing right now. I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And, instead of working for the money, I'm working for the fun of it. And the money is just a side effect, so to say. Yeah. And it's a necessary side effect, yes, but it's not the focus anymore. The anxiety that drops off from that is huge. But people have to start also connecting to the fact that sometimes you have to say enough is enough. I don't need this mansion, okay?
Right.
That's not going to be it. And that's what the wellness wheel, to circle back, is for, to say, hey, mansion, is that do we really want a 10 in that sector, home environment? Or can we tone it down to an 8 and have that extra energy to place into, again, for instance, the relationship, the people that live in the house? That type
I'm
of
so
stuff.
proud of you.
Yeah. So it's a great transformation, honestly, and I want to put that out there for people to understand. Yes, you can have that too.
Yeah,
know?
I mean, wow, you said a lot in that little story that you just told there about yourself. And one, this idea of, and that's, you know, something that I promote, this idea that genetics, that, you know, this, that we're born one way and that they can't change it. And that's for every, you know, everything, like our, you know, our thoughts, our, you know, our, even like our body, like our cells replicate, like all, you know, right? They change
Right,
over.
right.
So we have the ability to start to focus on things and change that. And you did that. You learned through, you know, how you know, coming through life, learning, you know, hearing stories and putting yourself out there, that, you know what, I'm not just this, I can evolve, I can change. And now you're inspiring others to do the same. I think it's
Yeah,
fantastic. It's amazing. And
it's
I think
amazing.
as a medical professional, because a lot of times medical professionals are like, they feel like they have to just be that kind of stoic, and, you know, I'm going to give you, you know, this, as you say, diagnosis, and then there's a treatment,
Yeah.
whatever it is prescribed. But you're saying, no, there's more to that. There's
Oh, yeah.
relationships, there's spirituality, and then what is this energy you talked about?
Now,
How do you
now we're
bring that
getting.
in now?
I don't want to cut out Peggy completely from this because it's a huge topic, you know. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about epigenetics, you know, the influences of your genes and the expression of who you are as a result of that, you can go further and further and deeper into this. And you know, I'm a hormone specialist, so I know that hormones influence our internal genetics all the time. But if you go further and further and look into, for instance, quantum mechanics, that's basically where the big buzz is right now. Then you're talking about the duality of energy and matter. You know, is it a waveform or is it a matter? It's all energy, but it's separate. These two things influence each other, and the influence of the spiritual aspect, or God, or, you know, the field, whatever you want to call it, that influence is tremendously powerful. And that power we all have inherent, locked into ourselves. The problem is that society molds us into this being that is going to be a productive member of society and has to follow certain rules. And then you have your wife and your kid and your van and your everything, you know, it's all just rubber stamped into our subconscious. And so we're following these programs. I didn't feel any freedom in myself when I was doing that. Now I have it.
Yeah.
And now I don't need a lot of things that I thought were absolutely necessary to lead my life. It's just not.
Yeah, I'm going kind of through a similar thing right now, where I'm getting a lot of things that I'm reading, things I'm coming across about having things more simple, not like having a small life, more simple and more essential, right? And really, you know, what is important, because I think there's so much noise, right, out there, so much. And I think that's one of the things that's happened with healthcare too, is there's just so much noise. Like, what do we pay attention to? What, you know, what this person over here is saying I should be vegan. This person's saying I should be carnivore. This person's saying I should be weight trained. This is, I wrote, and you just sit in the middle going, I don't know what to do anymore. What do I do? Right. And it's not just health industry, it's everything. And so this idea of bringing it down to what is essential, what is important, you know, and kind of starting to cut out that noise.
And how do you discern that for yourself? That's the big problem. And especially for guys, because the heart is the conduit. If the heart is the manager of your mind and not the other way around, your life will change forever in the positive direction. The decisions that you're making are heart-based. Your interactions with people are heart-based. All of this will make a huge difference. The male population was programmed not to go that route at all. And so I can tell you already, the amount of males in our network group is a whole lot less than females, but there are some out there, and somebody's got to be the starter. And we are the beginning of all of this. Okay, we're at the forefront, just like
Right.
you are, and we are going to push that topic because we got to.
Well, and I
It
think
is liberating.
if we tie in the quantum discussions and the epigenetic discussions, and, you know, sometimes that can feel like a very solo journey. Like people will ask me all the time, I don't even know how to manifest. So when you bring, and there aren't any rules, but society has made us think there are even rules on how we connect with our higher self. And
Right.
so with stories like this, I mean, you can have it all the way from, you know, we have an author that talks about his Akashic record discovery and that type of journey. And then you have someone over here who is trying to lose 100 pounds because they're stuck in the keto diet, and neither one of them are wrong. But when somebody can connect and go, oh, that's what it's like bringing it together. That's what storytelling. I would stand up in front of a train because I'm so convinced that we can send whatever message and whatever perspective in a beautiful, respectful way. Our experiences. And wouldn't it be nice if the world sat back and said, let me hear what your thoughts are, and they don't have to match mine?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
No
Well,
judgment, right? Yep.
no judgment. Exactly. Exactly. And we will get back to that topic because that kind of just sent me on a whole nother tangent. We will take another little break right now, and we will be right back. You're listening to the Best Living Show on Transformational Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Rachelle Sweet. And we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Best Living Show. We are discussing all things wellness and these two fabulous books that are full of stories and things that you can relate to, that cover mind, body, spirit, and your heart. And I mean, there's so many compelling things in these books. You know, just the heartfelt outpouring, I guess, too, right? And we talked a little bit about, you know, kind of your contributions earlier to these books and how, as professionals, right, we tend to be the ones that are on the one side of the desk and hearing the stories, and now we've stepped out in front, and you know, we're being more vulnerable by telling these stories. So tell me, in the next book, because you've got the trilogy is coming out, these two books were very different. How is it going to be different with the storytelling in this new one that's coming out?
I love what no, this is good. What I love about the question that you just asked, and I say there's no difference, because the reason that is that everybody gets to write their very true and personal, authentic story. Because I was asked so many times in this second book, especially, like, what do you want me to write about? I'm like, and I would always say, write like nobody's going to read it, because that's the real meat. And just act like, you know, that journal that we write, we're like, oh, what if I die? Where's the key? We don't want anyone to read it. We want these stories to be as if you think no one's going to read it. And the beauty about all the stories is they're always going to fit every single
Right.
book. It doesn't matter. And if you guys out there who are writing in compilation books, I'm going to give you some advice. I think you should vet it. I think you should vet the authors. I think you should vet who else is in the book, because it's more important of aligning with the mission and vision of the book, not just getting published. And that's what we were so focused. Marcus and I would call each other during the first book and just say, it's our heart, it's our heart, it's our heart. And if we're not aligned with it, we're going to put it on a shelf. We're going to put it on a shelf, because it's not about getting the darn thing out. Sorry, Jessica. So our point is that the content will flow, and the content is connected, book 1 and 2 and 3, but it doesn't matter what they write about.
So as you talk about that, it's interesting because, you know, James Redfield was the forward on the first book, and of course, you know, the Celestine Prophecy, looking for those coincidences, those things that come together. And what I think is interesting, what you just said is that I think as you put the call out for the authors and you also put the energetic call out that this has to be something that we agree with. We need to bring people together where it makes sense. Did you find that happening? Like, like these stories were coming together and you're like, wow, this is crazy how this is working.
And what was so fun about it is, I initially thought I'm very left brain, Excel spreadsheet brain. And so I initially thought we're going to get these stories in, but Marcus and I are going to have to sit down and go, are we going to put them in? Because they're all connected. I could put somebody in the heart quadrant about relationships, but yet over here, they're a hoarder and it might need to go in home, environment. So it's like, well, where are we going to put these? And I'm telling you what, we have 40 authors in both books, 40, and then 39, because we also have our media partners. They write a story too, which is very different than most compilation books. And so you have these 40 stories, and I was looking, I'm like, whoa, there are 10 going into the heart quadrant. There are 10 in the spirit quadrant. They're not strategically we just look at the meat of it and go, there goes that one. There go. This is in body because this person discovered they had anorexia, so it just flows. It just flows like that.
Wow.
Cool beans.
And that is the other message, that it is really universal. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are in your life, what you're doing. This is an applicable tool that is going to help you uncover some stuff that is important for your well-being in the long run.
Well, and when we sought out the forwards, I had interviewed James and I had a relationship with him. And then when we sought out, so for James Redfield, it was kind of like, help us get the message out there that it's all one, it's all inclusive and it supports what we think about the wheel. And then Dr. Teta, who is, been in the Navy for 20 years and a cardiothoracic transplant surgeon. And it did take a very much of the support of win the wellness war. So his quote unquote resume and his belief system, he battled spinal meningitis when he was in college. And so his story just made sense. The third book we're seeking is, who's going to hit it home for us and kind of bring
any sneak previews on who that might be?
My emails are busy today. Yeah, they're busy. And we're, this is having your first radio show. And I worked with Dr. Pat Basili at Transformation Talk Radio, and Jessica quote unquote found me in 2017, serendipity. But she taught me, you guys please listen, she taught me back then that we all are looking at our professional resume. What did I do? What year did I do it? What acronym do I have? She kept saying to me, what is your life resume, your personal resume? What have you done? And the best example I can give that I will never forget is I always used to say, I got my first certification in 1989. And we evolved to going, I got my first certification in Frankfurt, Germany. I was over there, the Berlin Wall came down, how stressful it was and what was happening. And I saw that transition between professional and me. And just going, people care, people connect to that. And that's when I jumped to the front and got on the other side of the microphone as you were chatting earlier. And I thought, I got to take risks, man. I've been doing this a long time. No more subcutaneous crap. And, because we do that. You don't talk about sexuality and politics and religion in our profession. You sit back, let them do it, and you design it. But when I jumped, it was scary, like you said. But I knew I had a team. I knew I had you. I knew I had Marcus. I knew I had 40 other authors that go big or go home was my kind of thing.
Right. Well, this is a big concept, and so it's going to be a home run. That's all I can say,
And the keep it simple, stupid, you kind of said that, it sounds terrible, but that is, the KISS acronym. I learned that with the hurricane, and you're right. It doesn't mean I'm dumbing down my life or my vision or my purpose, but Mother Nature is out there. And I didn't think about that. I moved where I always wanted to live. I sat at a beach on Friday before the hurricane, and I never thought it would go away. I never thought Mother Nature would literally took the beach away. So as we're living, and we went back to try to find it about a month ago, and it's really small, but it was really emotional because I was like, and I'm putting that crap off. to
Mhm.
just sit here 17 hours a day and pound this stuff out. And so really, we ended up at a hotel with a couple of suitcases of shirts, and we did it for 6
Right.
months.
Yeah.
So, who cares about, and
Right.
everybody's different. I get that, but living in the now means a lot more to me instead of just a book that's 20 years old.
Right.
Like, or too late, I'm not,
Right. Yeah.
putting you down there.
I mean, I think, wow, we've hit on so many like great subjects today. And one of the things I was thinking about earlier, we were talking about unity and how this is, not only brought 40 authors together, but bringing other people around the world together in these stories, because they can feel the vulnerability that's going out there. They can start to understand the message and take that on themselves, and really start to look at their lives and how they can change it. But I think like this is something that's very different than what we see like in social media right now, because I feel like there is a lot of judgment out there. There isn't a lot of unity. There's kind of tribes forming. And I think that this book is really kind of taking a different stance, if you like, by bringing this together.
Yeah, it's basically from an individual's perspective, the ability to make yourself a whole functioning unit before you get into connections to the outside, because
Mhm.
you can bring negative energy into any group and you can bring positive energy into any group.
Mhm.
And I'm now talking about the energy aspect of things, because that has been excluded for too long in our lives. And that is actually where the unity is coming from. We are all connected. We all come from one origin, let's put it that way. And as such, we do best if we are working together. Because if you get yourself away from that, I think the best, for instance, like suicide, it's almost like you have a fire, everything is glowing nicely, you take an ember out, that ember goes out because it's not part of the unity of the fire anymore.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunate, and people need to recognize that the unity is where the power is, and that individual freedom comes from that unity
Right.
power. And you won't achieve that trying to willpower yourself into it, whichever means you take, your Lamborghini or whatever. It's not going to work. That's not it. You're not connected. And as long as you're not connected, you don't feel good. Period.
Well, and we're
That's my
responsible. Yeah, when we think about being responsible, we're getting ready for you to tie up and do your beauty here, Dr. Rachel. One thing that I saw come out of this that I didn't realize, we talk about generational changes and epigenetics and how it changes and how we change the programming. I didn't expect ever that these stories, when I wrote this book, would be in my children's hands, my 29 and 36-year-old boy sons, who would eventually, my youngest son struggled extremely difficult with alcoholism and getting in a massive accident that steered his life. And he's writing in this, and he's transparent. And now we're writing a children's book series. So if you talk about changing generations, you can't get stuck in your own nucleus or even looking out there too far. We got to look, like you said, we've been reading stories since our children have been in our wombs, and when they were 2 years old, and it stops. Reading has stopped, and we've got to change that and bring people off the screen and back into telling stories,
Right.
or I'm going to get mad.
And you know what,
Ooh.
and actually it's even before that. Yes, we tell stories to our children, but as I said, going back to tribes, what they did after they came back with the hunt and they had their dinner was they sat down by the fire and they told the old stories. And that was how wisdom was passed down. And I think it's something that is missing, and that we are all bringing back, right? Is that notion of stories and how they can transform lives. So we are getting towards the end of the show. It always goes so quick. I don't know where this time goes. It flies.
I know.
So
Bummer.
tell us a little bit about when Wellness GPS is going to be coming out. Have you got a timeline for that?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, we do, Houston. So the third book, you can learn more about the series on allthingswellness.com/authors. So we have all of the books in there. You can read about the books in the forward. We also have a media tab on there for all of our wonderful media partners. I just want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Pat Basili, Eileen Bill, Don Brightman, Martinet Emmons, Christine Ennis, Dennis Patoco, Christopher Rausch, Andy Vargo, Frank Zakari, and Teresa Velarde. Wellness GPS can be found on there. allthingswellness.com, wellness-GPS. And please, we're recruiting authors. We're looking at their stories. We're turning your application. Let's get your story out there and change the world.
Excellent.
That's
So
it.
head on out there. And, if you've had the bug to write, or you have a story that you want to tell,
Right.
Peggy wants to know.
And if you haven't, I just want to say the last word, you guys, you know what? You don't have to be writers. You don't even have to be storytellers.
Listen,
Right.
I can attest to that. When
I get
when Teresa came to me and said, "Oh, Peggy, a story," I said, "I don't write. No, I don't write. That's not what I do." And I've
Right.
published a book since then.
Right.
So believe
Amen,
me, you don't have
sister.
to be a writer.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
here on the show, I'm all about thriving. And so I'm going to start with Marcus first. What do you do on a daily basis to intentionally thrive?
Well, when you get up, the first thing is an intention, a gratitude, and a positive outlook to the day. Frequently in the past and still now, waking up with a muggy headed, not really ready, getting the day started right is the way to go. And getting yourself to feel positive is the very first thing. The fact that I did not know, which I want everybody to understand, is that we have that power.
Yeah.
Attitude
We
of
were
gratitude.
trained.
There you go.
That's it.
Love it.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Coach Peggy.
Mine is
do you do?
nature. I just got to get my feet in the grass. I'm a Capricorn, I'm an earth sign. I just recognize that if I need to be in the water, that's just what I have to do to regenerate. That's
Both, so important. And
Boom.
actually, I think if you can walk around barefoot in the water, in the grass, doing your attitude of gratitude, take it to a whole new level.
There you go.
Oh,
Perfect.
well,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for being on the
Thank
show. I've enjoyed this so much. I love talking with you guys always. I'm so looking forward to the next book, Wellness GPS, where that's going to go and all about that. And hey, guys, head out there to your local bookstore, Amazon, get a copy of the book. If you haven't already, read the stories. They are compelling. There's something in there for everyone, and you won't regret it. So thank you everyone for listening. You've been listening to the Best Living Show on Transformational Talk Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Rachel Sweet, and we will see you in an episode soon. Thanks for listening to the Best Living Show. I'm your host, Dr. Rachel Sweet. Breathe, eat, sleep, thrive in every aspect of your life on transformationtalkradio.com. Tune in Thursdays at 6 p.m. to continue your new narrative and step into a new way of being. We are not what people have told us we are. We are so much more than that. I am going to help you thrive and get the answers you desire, not only in the external world, but on the inside. For more information, go to drrachelsweet.com. That's drrachelsweet.com.